Welcome to the Roving Story segment. I am Carla Brown, and I am your host today. Today, we learn how Anansi cooked curried goat for the first time.
In the days of King Shago and the first people, there was a prized ram that belonged to the ruler himself, and this ram was called Mister Boasty. The king loved this ram and took great pride in it, but unfortunately, it fell victim to Anansi's wrath. Anansi, always scheming, threw a rock at the ram when he found it grazing on his crops, killing it instantly. And in his typical fashion, Anansi wasted no time and made a delicious curried goat dish from the prized ram's meat, seasoned with Wray and Nephew rum. Anansi invited all his friends to enjoy the meal, but he knew that he had crossed the king, and the consequences would be severe. The next day, while sitting under a tree, Anansi was struck on the head by a nut that had fallen from the tree. This nut became the inspiration for his escape plan. Anansi took the skin of the dead ram and tied it to the nut tree, creating a decoy. He then went to a spider and offered it some of the remaining curried goat and rum, telling the spider about a tree laden with nuts. The spider, delighted by the offer, went to the tree to eat. Anansi then went to the king and told him that the spider had killed the prized ram and was now eating the last bit of goat meat under the tree. The king, furious with the spider's apparent crime, demanded the death penalty. Anansi was rewarded by the king, but he didn't stop there. He went back to the spider and warned it of the king's wrath, telling the spider to plead for mercy from the king. Meanwhile, the king had gone home for lunch and told his wife of the spider's alleged crime. She laughed at the king's story, pointing out the ridiculousness of a small spider hoisting a ram up a tree. The king, realizing that he had been deceived, ordered his men to bring Anansi to the palace. Anansi, thinking he was being brought to the palace to receive his reward, walked in confidently and asked, "Well, what is my reward for the killer of your ram?" The king, infuriated by Anansi's audacity, kicked him so hard that Anansi split into two pieces, no longer a man but a spider with long legs. And so it was that Anansi's deceitful ways led to his downfall, with the consequences of his actions catching up to him in the end. That's all for now, and good night.